Ulonkata bati yada tó yẹ kó máa da ifá. Inú tó yẹ kó jẹun ló fi bí pa. Ọba tálá, ọba takuntakun. Ṣàngó, Èṣù, Ògún, Ọya, Ọ̀ṣun. Ìwọ ló ń bọ̀ nílé yìí. Kí ni ìṣẹ̀ṣe tán ṣe nílé yìí o? Ó jẹ́ lọ́jà.
Alafia, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Gbemi, and today we're back with another episode featuring Baba Karega. Baba, peace and blessings. How you doing, Baba?
Peace, brother. I'm well. How are you?
I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. I can't complain at all. Listen, I woke up this morning and the rest I'm going to figure it out. That's my motto.
There we go.
Yes, sir. Look, and so before we go into it, man, I just thought about it. I had another duo on here that I call the Thunder and Lightning 1-2 punch, but I just thought about it. You and EI were the first official Thunder and Lightning couple because y'all really are Shango and Oya.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember
I said, yes, there we are.
Yeah, man. I remember the first time I interviewed her, it came up and we were talking about it. And then I remember it was so funny because it was me, her, and Shango Ni. And I remember one of us asked her a question. And man, the way she like had a look on her face and then she answered that question, like we both were like, oh, like, yep, I don't want nothing to do with that. But yeah, man, I'm here for it and I love to see it. And speaking of which, today's topic, we're going to get into this thing called gender wars. And so with you being a man, who is spiritual, being a man who is married to a very powerful woman, a very powerful queen who's also happens to be a priestess of Oya. Can you kind of share like your journey and just kind of give us a little bit about yourself before we go into this, I feel like so much and so needed conversation in regards to, healthy relationships and this thing that they call the gender wars?
Oh, goodness. So where do I begin? My journey. I guess to really contextualize it in the conversation that we're having today, let me just begin with how I was raised, right? I had my mother and my father there. I was actually raised in the church, as many of us who now practice ATRs were. So I have a very intrinsic and intimate context for the way that Western religions tend to warp the minds of African people and how this all has been created, I think, whole cloth of our socialization over here and how we've gotten away from our true ways, our ancient ways, our working ways. So I was raised in the church and I was raised by people who were together for 49 years, right? And so for them, they very much believed in how the church moved. And so it was their strength. But I did see while I was coming up, a lot of the seeds of the discontent that we see now amongst our people. Some of the things like just considering ourselves filthy rags before the eyes of God, all of these different ways. Yeah. All of these different ways that we already have this self-deprecating notion. The post-traumatic slave syndrome that had men and women against each other the same way it had dark skin and light skin against each other, rich and poor against each other, young and old against each other, and all of these different things that were part of my socialization coming up, much of which I was enough of a rebel to be like, nah, that's nonsense. But many of my counterparts, many of people who I came up with, the neighborhoods that I grew up in Missouri City, Texas, and a lot of the philosophies that I heard espoused there kind of set the backdrop for what we see today. And all of this men against women stuff, I know that it's all the rage now to talk about it, but it's not new. It's just one of those things that I think has come up for us to relitigate and perhaps hopefully permanently put to rest. So I think that that's why we're here today. But, for me, man, as I was coming up, I had my own set of bumps and lumps. I've had multiple marriages in my day. I've been married to many other people, but now I'm married to my wife. And what I had to realize over time is that I was choosing incorrectly. And in so doing, I was creating traumas for other people and creating traumas for myself when I really needed to be looking within to really determine what sort of man I was going to be. And then that's what I was going to attract. A lot of times we're demanding things that we don't command in the way that we move throughout the world. And so I think that a lot of these conversations that we have that end up being antipathy between men and women is a result of those men and women not really doing the inner work in order to become that which it is they want to attract. And so they keep on attracting that which they say that they're against. But if they really look at themselves in a true sense, they will realize that they actually are the manifestation of everything they say they hate so much.
Yeah, that's I love that answer. And for those excuse me, who might not be familiar with the term ATR, we're talking about African traditional religions, because I know there are a lot of new subscribers and new listeners to the channel who might not be familiar with the term ATR. But that's a very powerful answer, man, and I love it too, because it segued right into, you kind of threw me an alley oop right off the glass for me to come in and dunk it down, man, with a lot of other questions. Because one of the things you said that, oh man, I love, because it just came up in a consultation I had, I think on Sunday, I had with a client, and we were talking about love, right? And what you said, I wholeheartedly agree with, because I know for a fact I've lived those experiences myself. You know what I mean? So, and what my personal advice is that, fall in love with you, fall in love with yourself, love yourself unapologetically. And I mean, love you some you. You know what I'm saying? Like, because nobody else is going to do that for you. Nobody's going to do it the way it's supposed to be done. And you can't be your best you for anybody else if you can't be your best you for you. And once you learn to love you the way you deserve to love you, you're not going to allow disrespect from nobody else. You're not going to allow anybody to not, respect you and hold you to regards and standards that you move with, because you're not going to tolerate that, because that's going to violate your self-respect, which ultimately is going to hinder your self-love. So therefore, once you learn to love you the way you deserve to be loved unapologetically and take nothing else, no shorts whatsoever, then the person who you attract or that the universe sends to you can't help but to move and operate on the same frequency, because you've already set the tone and sent out the transmission of what frequency you're operating on. Therefore, anything else would be uncivilized. You know what I mean? So it's like, I love how you went there with that, because that is so real. And I feel like so many of us are living with trauma. So many of us are living with, baggage from prior and previous relationships that we still bring into new ones that we should not, because then now I feel like you're convicting your new lover or your new boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever, with other people's crimes. You know what I mean? Because you're pretty much giving them your negative baggage or your negative trauma based energy based upon things that happened prior to you meeting this person. Now they're the recipient of what you didn't take care of before y'all got together. So that within itself, I feel like is worthy of a whole series. You know what I mean? Just talking about the healing aspect, because how does so let's just go into it, because I love your perspective on that. So how does it look, or why should it matter that a person is healed and has a level of self-love prior to engaging into a relationship with someone else?
Well, I mean, I could encapsulate it just by saying hurt people, right? And so if you go into a relationship with an otherwise well-adjusted and a well-healed person, but you're not that, then you're bringing your stuff, your mess, your roaches, your rats, your dirt, your dust into their very clean, pristine space, which is not fair to them, right? And not only is it not fair to them, it's not fair to you, because then you put your stuff off on them as if it's theirs. It doesn't actually give you the chance to actually grow yourself and realize that you need to clean up. A lot of times we will take our dirt, put it on someone else, and then project the problem onto them. When in fact, we needed to work on ourselves and realize that there's some cleaning up to do, that there's some reclaiming of self to do. And that, because I mean, at the end of the day, the healing is not about the other person that you're with. You could just stay alone for the rest of your days and still need to heal, because it's not about your next relationship. It's about your walk in this world. It's your walk with the Odu that you have, with the destiny that you have, that with the contract with heaven that you have, that you need to fulfill. So it's not about the other person. It's really about yourself. And if we keep on using other people as an excuse not to heal selves, we end up going to our graves not fully becoming ourselves.
Yes, sir. Wow. No, I love that. And man, listen. So before we came on air, we were speaking about, some of the things that we're going to get into today, and you started speaking on something. I was like, man, hold on, we gotta say that for the show, because that yeah, I need to hear it, but the people need to hear it too. So when it comes to relationships, right? And I love how vast and deep I know that you're going to go with this, right? When it comes to relationship, we've been dealing with, this intentional, strategic deployment of divide and conquer within our culture, within our families, and within our communities, especially in the melanated, Black families and communities. Can you kind of attest to how deep and how far this divisive strategic deployment of the divide and conquer system, has really torn into our quality of relationships, with man, woman, and man, woman, and child? Can you kind of speak to that, and why that is, or where it maybe came from, or
Hmm.
is behind it?
We only have an hour, don't we?
Yeah, look, we can chop this thing up and make it into parts and series, man. Look.
That we could, man. But I mean, at the end of the day, wow, we are people who were brought over here to be product, right? I always say that they mixed up our noun. What's a noun? A person, place, a thing, or idea. They took our people from our place and turned us into things based on an idea. And that idea was for us to be a product to be used until expended and then thrown away. We were never supposed to be over here and turn into a people with our own identity and our own perspective and our own desire to power and our own desire to sovereignty. That was never supposed to be a thing. And so when we look at the divide and conquer strategies that are utilized ever so effectively against our people, it is an offshoot of that original design from the oppressor that came and snatched us from our home, because they're looking to make sure that we never fully become empowered. The Black woman and child, the family unit is the bedrock upon which all political power and the sovereignty is built. Without having that, nothing else can come. So, honestly, I see the oppressor continuing to do what it is that they've done very, very well for many, many generations, which is divide us against ourselves in order to make sure that we never become aware of our true power. I think they understand it more than a lot of us do, right? They understand who we are more than a lot of us do. And so they incorporate that. They make sure that they put the man against the woman. They make sure that they emasculate the man. They make sure that they give the woman the impression that she has to become the man in a situation. They make sure that divine nuclear family is destroyed, because everything else that would come as a result of that can't be if that isn't, right? So I hope that answers the question. It's a broad question, but I think that at the base of that agenda is the desire to maintain the power structure as it currently exists. And it's a recognition of what it looks like, historically, when Black people are loving on each other, when Black people do have family structures and cultural mores that we ascribe to and don't abandon. When we do that, we create majesty. We create amazing things. We create what others would determine to be magic or supernatural. When in truth, it's truly us at our best. It's us manifesting natural in ways that other cultures just simply can't understand or access, right? And they know that power is there, so they want to make sure that we never know
it. Yes, sir. Yep. No, that's facts. And man, listen, that you said something. You said a lot, and I had to run out and go grab this, because I just got this. I think Sunday, I just got exposed to this work right here that I'm about to share. But I dived into it just kind of like I did a little skim through, I think, yesterday. But man, when I tell you that it's a powerful piece of work, and it really does brings to life the visuals to like what we're speaking to, you know what I mean, in regards to understanding what this thing called Jim Crow is. Jim Crow is, and man, I'm telling you, like, just from the breeze through, I'm like, yo, this is gonna be like a doggone that's going to be part of the curriculum in the private community. You know what I mean? That we're doing in the African spirituality private community, because it speaks to a lot of things that so many of us, I feel like, are oblivious to. You know, when we're talking about the intentions of this whole entire deployment of the divide and conquer, strategy. So with that, I forgot to mention one thing, man, before we got into it. But if we can kind of do a quick a U-turn to kind of bring this up and highlight this real quick. You guys have a short film that we spoke on. I had y'all on right before the initial premiere of it, and since that episode, that short film's doing some things, if I'm not mistaken, right? So let me highlight that real quick and show some love, because we were supposed to do that before your big trip, and the timing and all kind of crazy stuff threw it off. So I want to make sure I double back, man, and keep my word and show love to the short film, because it was dope. So shout out to you and EI for that. So if you can kind of let us know a little bit about that before we go forward, man, so because people need to know about that short film.
Yes, absolutely. For those who aren't aware, we have a short film called Freedom, and it is starring my dear wife, Asia Ani. That is Ifatola. Oloye Ifatola. She is now chief of Ajay. She's in Iyalaje. But yes, Freedom is based on a song that we actually did together. I'm a music producer. I'm actually sitting in my studio right now having this conversation. But she wrote this song, and then I composed some music to Freedom. And one of her godchildren actually is a professor of film over at SCAD and also a director. And so she stepped up, and we created this beautiful thing. That beautiful thing has gone on to be screened in, let's see, New York, Mississippi, here in Atlanta, many other dates forthcoming, New Orleans, right? And, right after we got back to Atlanta from New Orleans, we got a call stating that our film had been selected for the Cannes Film Festival over in the south of France. So a few weeks ago, almost a month ago now, I believe, we went over to France and did a showing of the film, and the film won for Best Original Music. So feather in my cap.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you. And so we're continuing to go different places with the film. Let me see. I think we're going to be back in Mississippi soon. We have another film festival coming in New Orleans in December, and other TBD. Right. So we're very excited about it. We're actually looking for a streaming service to put it on. But this is the first of many. We've developed relationships over in France when we went there. So much more and bigger things are forthcoming. Please stay tuned.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
That's what's up, man. Congratulations. That's dope. I didn't know y'all won the award for the sound. That's dope. It's a powerful piece, man. I remember when y'all let me see it prior to our first interview about it, man. I was like, yo, that's powerful. Like, hell, it needs to be a whole film, if you ask me. And you know what? Now that I think about it, and this is no slight either, but I'm calling it how I see it, and that's the only way I know how to do. But it gave me y'all's film it had the Sinners energy before Sinners came out, like straight up. Because I remember, bro, you remember man? Listen, when y'all showed it to me, like I think we were on the backstage of the platform that we're on now, and I remember watching it, and I was like, I want you to watch it first. You need to watch it so that way, you know what I'm saying, you really can get a feel. And man, when I remember coming back to that screen, I'm like, yo. Like, well, y'all got something with this. Like, y'all got something with it. That was dope. I remember, but now in hindsight, what you talking about it, that jarred my memory back to how I felt. And one thing I remember, the very first speech I ever gave, I remember the brother, shout out to Mr. Seabrook, man, the brother who critiqued my speech. And it was like, I didn't know what to expect, but it was the best thing I could have ever heard, even though it wasn't a great speech. But he started his evaluation of the speech saying, what I seen, what I felt, and what I heard. And then he went into his evaluation from there. And it was just so dope, because when I watched your film, that's the first thing that came to my mind is what I saw, what I felt, and what I heard. And then what I saw some very powerful images of our ancestors, to me, like in real life, in real time, were on the screen, and I'm watching it in the third dimension, but I'm also seeing them in the fourth or fifth dimension spiritually. I'm seeing them with my mind's eye. I'm feeling them with my work body. I'm hearing them with, with like the receptors that I feel like pick up the telepathic messages that come through. So like I really saw, heard, and felt some really powerful, energy from that film, man. And I do my best to describe things to the best of my abilities without giving more than what it's worth, and not taking anything away from what it's worth by giving it the best description that I possibly can. And that's what I got from that film. Like it really did have that element that I feel like a lot of people went crazy over by that when they saw Sinners. Y'all's film was doing that, and it came out before Sinners. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like that should be I feel like it should be a full film. I don't know. Just my little 2 cents.
Well,
But
I think I can speak for all of us when I say I certainly appreciate that vote of confidence, brother.
sure.
And yes, I think we tapped into the same thing that Sinners did, especially the scene, right? And we all know
Yes.
the scene.
I ain't gonna ruin it for those who haven't seen your film yet. So, but yeah, I'm telling you, like it was okay. I was like, yeah, okay.
So I mean, like I said, like we have so much more that we're doing. When we actually got over there, we met people who are filmmakers from Atlanta, and it was the first time we were meeting them while we were in the south of France. So it was just interesting. But we're developing rather a lot of relationships that I think are going to bear great fruit. And at the end of the day, the point of, I think, any Black artist, especially in a time of war such as what we're in right now, and I don't just mean in Iran, I mean the war that's been being waged on us for hundreds of years. Anytime that we are doing our work, it's necessary for us to make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of our people, make sure that we have our finger on the needs of our people, and make sure that we're telling the stories that other people will lie about, the stories that they'll conjure all sorts of ridiculous ideas about all of the stereotypes that they put on screen. We need to make sure that we're telling our own stories, because I think that's where we find our power. Furthermore, every new generation that comes along needs the generations before it to tell the tale, and tell it in a way that empowers them, as opposed to making them feel like so many of us have felt as we were coming up.
Yes, I sure. No, yeah, that's powerful, man. Like I said, and we're gonna have to do a whole nother show just dedicated to that alone, because it was that impactful for me, for real. Matter of fact, and we could talk about it off here, but maybe even if we could put together a doggone watch party or something, you know what I'm saying? Like where we can get together, I can get people from the community, and when we can talk off here about it, but that would be something dope that I would love to be a part of, man, because like I said, it is a special film, and I enjoyed it.
Shit.
Yes, sir. So back to the original topic now, with the gender wars, man. Spirituality, it definitely, I feel like, plays a significant role in regards to the success of a relationship. How do you feel like your spiritual practice can either add to the value of a relationship, or maybe even in some ways take away? Because I don't think I've ever asked this, but like were you and EI both already in your EFI journeys when y'all met, or did y'all kind of like, how did all that unfold?
So we were already in our EFI journeys when we met. Interestingly enough, neither one of us were in our EFI journeys when we were first in like satellites of each other. We're both poets. So she was a poet doing like slam poetry in New Orleans, and I was a poet doing slam and stuff like that in Houston. And so, interestingly enough, the first time we were in the same room with each other was 2003, and we were slamming against each other. I didn't know her from campaign; she didn't know me either. But when we first met at an EFI conference where we were both recent Aberration, no less. And it was like, it was magnetic.
Yeah.
And I mean, for years, my ego, my perspective on what a wife is supposed to be, or supposed to look like, or how it's supposed to fit, which is very much informed by my socialization growing up, very much informed by all sorts of noise coming from the outside world, stopped me from saying, hey, yeah, you're the one. Stopped me from realizing what she already knew. And she was just like,
That's what they do.
That's what they do, right? But I guess to get to the gist of your question, IFA has empowered us. IFA has made us possible. IFA brought us together initially. IFA has kept us together. And I would say in a broader sense for that question, IFA is going to do one of two things. Either it's going to show you, yes, this is you, and these are the things you need to do in order for you and her to remain, or this ain't you, And this is what you need to do to get out of here with as fewer scars as possible and without inflicting us any scars, right? So, there are times that our spiritual practice will tell us, nah, Oshogbo, get out of there. This ain't it. This is not in alignment with your destiny. You need to wait. You need to pause. You need to be silent. You need to be still. While there are other times it's like, no, you need to move forward, and this is how. So, the thing about Ifa that gives us a leg up, especially in matters of the heart, is the insights that we're given via Dafa, via divination. We're able to understand things that we otherwise would just kind of be giving our best educated guess at, but we're not really informed from the spirit world, from the perspective of the sphere, of the whole, of the all knowledge, right? That all knowledge that we're able to tap into gives us the real power to move in any way. Without it, it's kind of crapshoot, as they say.
Yes, like almost like playing Russian roulette, because you don't know, you know what I mean? But no, that man, that's powerful and that's real. That is so real, and that's one of the things. Being a diviner, that's a challenge, because I see what the Odu, saying what it drops and what falls with the message that needs to be interpreted, and I deliver it, as clear and as accurate as I possibly can. But when it comes to matters of the heart, like you said, it's very hard for some people to go in the direction that they know is the right direction, because not only do they feel that, but that's been confirmed through the Odu when it dropped and fell, and then it was transmitted to them via the consultation message, right? But there's many times where the people, because I guess the heart will still want to try to work through it, but then I get another call another month or a few weeks later, we need to do another one, and it's the same. You're getting the same information.
Yep.
Same information. There might be a couple of different things added here and there, sprinkled in based upon what's kind of developed since the last. But for the most part, you're going to get the same message, because E5 is always on point. So it's now how you're going to take the tip of the spear in that point and what you're going to do with it. Because E5 is not going to change what E5 already gave you, because E5 already gave you the answer. Yep. So now, like, what part are you going to do? Matter of fact, and we spoke about that last night with Professor Kaba. I was talking about sacrifices, but I was talking about the sacrifice of self. You know what I'm saying? The sacrifice that you have to make to peel back the layers. The sacrifices that you have to make to remove all those different layers to get to the heart of the onion. You know what I mean? Or to get to the coal off of the diamond. We all have to sacrifice. Yes, we have to sacrifice liability behaviors, liability relationships, liability habits. All those things have to be sacrificed in order for us to move on and elevate to the next level or the next phase. So when we're talking about relationships, one of the things that came to me not too long ago, but I never knew it until maybe 2 years ago, but it was like the huge what do you call those lights, like the lighthouses in the ocean that kind of direct the ships into the shore or whatever. It was like a lighthouse or whatever, like that went off in my head. But it was an elder who was telling me, when it comes to relationships, especially for men, do your research to see what that female's relationships are with her father, if she had one, and also how is the health and the dynamics of the relationships with her mother, if she, if her mother's still around, and then also if she has children, what are the dynamics of the relationships with her children? Because he was like, you can learn a whole lot by just getting an assessment off of those 3 areas of their relationships, and then you can kind of then determine, do you even feel like this person is going to align with you based upon the health of those other 3 dynamics in their relationships with their father, with their mother, and with their children? And I'm like, man, I never thought about that. It was a very powerful statement, and it really like went off like a huge light bulb in my head. Like, dang, that's deep, because there's a lot of people who have trauma that's subconscious trauma. It's trauma, like, for example, for a lot, sometimes, not all, but sometimes a woman who grows up without a father, they may have problems with men. They might have trust issues that are subconscious that they're not aware of, because it's innate subconscious trauma. You know what I mean? So there's so many different elements that go into what I feel like a person is, or what they personify, and what they bring to a relationship. So when it comes to that, how would you say you learned the lessons that you spoke about earlier in regards to, like, when you were in the wrong relationships, and how, it didn't work, and then you had to kind of find yourself and be accountable for what like what it was a part of you, you know what I mean? That how were you able to look at the man in the mirror, to quote the legendary, the king Mike? how were you able to look at the man in the mirror and take the lessons from what parts you contributed or you had to, you know what I'm saying, be accountable for, and then apply that to the relationship that you have now that's, it seems like to me, is extremely successful. So how did you do that? Like, what did you do and how did you do it?
Sure. So, you know, much of our success, I think, is rooted in the fact that we were friends before we became an item. And I bring that up in the context of this question to say this. During our friendship, we had a lot of really pivotal conversations that helped us to build a very strong foundation. For me, my wife afforded me the opportunity to really like step back and look at myself in that mirror that you were mentioning and say, all right, where's your accountability? And a lot of times people they cringe when they hear that word accountability, when really it's your are you keeping count? Are you keeping score? Your accountability. Do you have the ability to take an account of where you were part of this equation? Right? Without accountability, you're doing bad math.
Yes.
So it's a matter of looking at yourself because I think a lot of people conflate accountability with fault.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily the same thing.
Yep.
It's just, what did you allow for? Right. And then recognizing what you allowed for, even if you allowed that from yourself. What did you allow to come into your space? What did you allow for yourself to bring into a space that was unhealthy? Right. And all of these different things. And so my wife helped me to do that, honestly, when she was my friend. You know, and not only that, but just having conversations with my elders, having conversation with my mother, asking my father about things when he was still here. All of these different things, I think, became an amalgam of knowledge that I was able to pull from and be like, oh, right. So having those eureka moments is very much informed by making a concerted effort to reach out to people who have insights that are beyond yours, may have a perspective that is objective, right? And then determining it based on all of these different things. You don't go off of just one person's perspective on it, one person's feedback on it. You take all of the information and then really get quiet, right? So I had to get quiet. I had to take all the information that was coming to me and then get quiet and realize, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. No, I shouldn't have been married to her just because I thought I was being noble. No, I shouldn't have gotten married to her just because she had a big booty. No, I shouldn't have been fooling around with her because of some title or because of some idea about prestige or whatever. This is my accountability. These are my ability to take account of what I brought into the situation. And even when we got into this marriage, my wife and I have had some knockdown, drag out fights. Oh my God. I'm so glad that we appear put together to you. I'll say this. It has been a journey, and it still is a journey. I'm not speaking of it as if it's over, but I am saying that we are very much way more functional than what we were when we first got here, because we both had the indomitable will to become our best selves in the context of this thing we call marriage. Because we both have an indomitable will to love each other like we've never loved before in life. And that requires getting uncomfortable sometimes. That requires doing things you wouldn't otherwise do because you weren't otherwise married to this person. So what makes you think you can do things that you wouldn't otherwise do? Rather, I'm mixing that up.
No, I got what you're saying though.
What makes you think that you can move like you regularly would in a circumstance that is not regular? You have a life partner now. So in dealing with a life partner, you have things that you have to do, ways that you have to show up that you otherwise wouldn't show up. And the same thing goes for children, right? As a father, before I was a father, man, I was at the club. I was doing my thing.
Yes, sir.
You know, and then I got married and then I had a son. And so once I had a son, that life was over. It was done.
Yeah.
Not that my life was over, but that aspect of my life moving as if I didn't have what I did have was through. Yep. And so what we both came to a realization on is that, hey, here we are, and no, she's not supposed to be like these other women. These other women are not my wife. I'm not supposed to be like these other men. These other men are not her husband.
Yep.
And we both had to come to a realization that, hey, we are here together and we have to learn ourselves and learn each other and work together in order for this thing to be viable. And so that's what we had to do. It was just a matter of having a sober realization of where we are and a will to do what was necessary because we both want to be here.
Yes, sir. Right. Nah, I love that. Man, I love that answer. Whew, yeah, that's there's so many different places I can go with that. I think one of the things that I'm curious as to, and I can't even imagine that when you talk about them fights, because look, we be having some real strong storms down here in Florida, man. And look, y'all both being Sean going, oh yeah, that is the epitome of thunder and lightning. So I don't even want to be a fly on the wall when all that fire is being thrown.
Yeah.
I don't want to, yeah, because those are two very, very ferocious, powerful deities, man, that y'all carry that energy. So, but luckily, you know, just like, you know, KBACA, you know, y'all working it out, man. Everything is great. So I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it. Yes, sir. So, but, you know, there's so many different layers to that, man, because for example, myself, how impactful and how important do you feel forgiveness is in order for a couple to have a successful relationship? Because me personally, I know I can only speak to myself, but I feel like learning the lesson of forgiveness was like the most profound, hardest, toughest, gut wrenching, you know what I'm saying, lesson, but also at the same time, the most loving, peaceful, serene, you know, like heavenly lesson as well, because I had to learn mine through hell, going through divorce, you know what I mean? But in that process, I learned that I had to forgive unapologetically and fully intentionally forgive in order to move forward. And it was tough, but once I did it, it was the best thing I could have ever done in my life, because it gave me so much freedom. You know what I mean? Like, I just was sharing this story recently too. It was almost like Superman picking up a dump truck off you and picking it up and just throwing it away. You know what I'm saying? And then now you're able to get up and move around. That's how I felt when I was able to get that proverbial monkey off my back. You know what I mean? When I was able to forgive and to kind of just throw all that baggage and all that trauma, all that foolishness, flush it down the toilet and move on with my life, man. So it's like, how important is forgiveness in the, I guess, in the never-ending journey of love and relationships? Like, how important is that? Because some people, I feel like, hold grudges and take you know, past disagreements or past arguments or past fights, and they hold on to it, even though they say they, you know, ready to move on, but they still actually holding on to it. But then now that's kind of carrying on that negative energy too. So how does how significant is forgiveness in regards to having a successful relationship?
Sure. A lack of forgiveness is the height of hypocrisy.
Whoa. One more time. I'm going to get off. Can you say that again? That was dope. I need to hear that.
I said a lack of forgiveness is the height of hypocrisy, because I think forgiveness is rooted in being able to see yourself in someone else. If they did something that you feel is just absolutely beyond the pale and you refuse to forgive them, then it ignores a really big fact. You have done some shit that is beyond the pale. You have done some things that have hurt people profoundly in your life. I don't know who I'm talking to right now, but you have done something that has hurt someone extremely profoundly in life. And for you to hold on to something with a vice grip and say, you can never be anything other than this thing that you did to me, that opens you up to that level of judgment. That opens you up to that level of expectation of perfectionism, right? That opens you up to all of that energy, which you don't want, because you want to be forgiven, right? You want people to see you as who you are as opposed to who you were. You want people to see you in a holistic sense as opposed to a time of being injudicious. You want people to be forgiving to you, right? So for you not to forgive is the height of hypocrisy. It's important. It's everything to a relationship, because We talk about that Oshun energy. We talk about mirrors. Well, if you did in fact invite a person who is supposed to be your counterpart, they're your mirror, right? And so things that you see in them, you need to be looking at you like, okay, so where is this present in my life? Where have I shown up like this? What has it done? Right? I feel the way I feel right now about what they did, but what have I done? How has this showed up with me? And what did I hope that someone else would do for me? When they gave me forgiveness, how did it make me feel? And shoot, let me think about what they must have done in order to be able to forgive me for the times that I moved in a way that was not in accordance with my highest good, with the highest good, right? It's important for us to take ourselves outside of ourselves, take ourselves outside of our own ego, take ourselves outside of our own comfort zone. Because when we do that, when we're able to look at things from a godly perspective, then we're able to realize that forgiveness is everything. That forgiveness is how you show up as a divine being. Everything else is a manifestation of destruction, and you become a menace.
Look, man, I almost want to end the show and just walk off like that, bro. I'm still getting over lack of forgiveness is the height of
Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Tongue twister. Like I had to write that down. I can't forget that. I had to write that down. I've never heard that before. That was profound. That was dope. Like after that answer, I really feel like, man, I could just walk off and end the show. That was a dope answer.
Let me add a little something more, right? When we think of it on a macrocosmic scale, what does a lack of forgiveness among nations turn into?
War.
Yeah. What does a lack of forgiveness amongst people turn into? Ethnic cleansing, genocide.
Yeah.
You're right. What does a lack of forgiveness for self turn into? Self-harming ideations.
Yeah.
Depression. Right? Yeah. Sociopathy. All sorts of other pathologies. So, we talk about relationships, but a lack of forgiveness within human beings is the bedrock of all that ails us.
Yes.
A lack of being able to see things for what they truly are, as opposed to just how they made us feel in a moment and us holding on to that feeling in that moment.
Yes.
Right? So it's extremely important for us just as beings within ourselves, because once again, healing is an inside job, and it has inside relevance more than anything else, more than conversations with other people, relationships with other people. This is about your Odu. This is about your destiny. This is about your purpose on the planet. And so for you to have an internal forgiveness, it translates to you having forgiveness with other people, right? And so you got to ask yourself the question: if you're not able to forgive them, where have you not been able to forgive yourself? Right? And in so doing, where have you become self-destructive? Where have you become destructive in the world, right? So these are larger conversations that are precipitated by this dynamic that we're discussing right now.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah, I knew this was gonna be what it is. I already knew. But that's why I wanted to do it. Like I said, I knew every person I talked to, I can like just listen as a sponge and see like how their mind works and like all the nuts and bolts and all that. And you got one of them minds that's like a damn maze, man. That thing it can go all over the place. I remember told me that too. I was laughing. I remember the first time we had a conversation, I started laughing. I was like, yep, it was everything she told me. She told me that too. I just laughed like, yep. I remember that call too. We talked for about an hour and a half, if I'm not mistaken, man. But I remember laughing to myself like, yep. Everything she said, that's it. Like, that's it right there. But man, but I love it though, because I'm a nerd, man. So I love, learning, studying, reading, but I love listening to people who, know their shit, you know what I'm saying, know what they're talking about, man. And that's what, like I said, I knew this conversation was going to be like this, because shout out to the guy, Kisalu, who was on, I think like a week or two ago. But I remember like something that you said triggered a comment that he made, and it was profound, just like that answer was. But he said, for a person to not, forgive or not to like work on themselves and like be sitting there, holding themselves down and just, in that self-limited and self-doubt, mindset or whatever, he was like, you are the only person to blame for that. Some people want to blame God for their, bad breaks in life. No, God ain't got nothing to do with that. That's you and your decisions and all the things that you've done up until this point that has to do with that. He was like, that's a very arrogant thing of you to even think that God has time to sit there and put roadblocks in your way. You know what I'm saying? Or, you know, I'm not saying, I don't know if I'm saying it verbatim, but it was a dope statement because pretty much he was like, God don't have time to put no damn challenges or hurdles or adversity on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that ain't what the creator is going to do. That's arrogant of you to even think that way because the creator is so much larger and so much bigger and so much more vast, you know, in the positive, you know, aspects of creation to even have that to be a fraction of who and what the creator is. But it's just something you said that triggered that because that's true. Like, I think so many of us, like we look at the outside of what's happening and don't pay any attention or hold any accountability on what, you know, came from the inside that contributed to those environments or experiences, you know, that unfold. But that was dope. So now on June 24th, 2025, where can we make a positive impact on this notion of divisiveness within the melanated community? You know, where I feel like this whole parasitical corporation, you know, systemic system of injustice creates these narratives and these agendas. Where can we, as healers and light workers, create some sort of combatant, you know, to combat some of that agenda? Like, what do you see as being something that's solution based that we can start working towards to have positive outcomes from these types of conversations?
Sure. So I think these conversations need to expand beyond, you know, the African spiritual experience, you know, podcast, right? And they need to be being had amongst our godchildren, amongst our counterparts in ATRs, but also just in our counterparts in the world. You know, being courageous enough to have the uncomfortable conversations with our people, get them out of their comfort zones, because a lot of times their comfort zones are based in a pathological, you know, mindset and dynamic. You can become comfortable with a lot of things that are not good for you, right? They're comfortable alcoholics. They're comfortable people who are doing heroin right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's extremely important for us to expand this conversations to make sure that we're having it with people who are clearly beset by the dynamic that we're referring to. Beyond that, I think that we have to contextualize this through the lens that it really should be contextualized through, which is all of this is the fruit of a poison tree that we have to stop eating from, right? You know, at the end of the day, the notion of Black men and women not being able to get along is not our natural state of affairs. It isn't. There's no way that dynasties could be built. Tribes for eons could have been able to be a viable thing. A culture in and of itself of African people across the entire continent of Africa would not have been a viable thing if the natural disposition of Black men and Black women is, ooh, I hate that nigga. Right? I hate that bitch. That's not our natural state of affairs, right? And you can just look at that objectively speaking. Agua Ifatumo didn't make that up. Just look at it. Just come on now. You know, it's obvious. So if it's obvious that this is not our natural state of affairs, clearly something unnatural has precipitated this. And we need to do the work. We need to do the math on, all right, where did this come from? Do the history on where this came from. Do the anthropology on where this came from. And when we realize that this is the handiwork of forces that want us to die, then it's going to shift our perspective on how we deal with it when it shows up, because we can say, oh, I know what this is. I'm not going to give credence to this. I know what this is. This is a virus. This was put on us by something outside of ourselves. This is not us. Let us come back to ourselves. Let us come back to our true nature. Let us recognize our true nature is one of cooperation. Let us come back to our true nature, which is one of love, which is one of divinity. And when we move in that, that's when all of these things are going to, you know, just like dominoes, fall into place, right? It's going to shift the way that we move in the world, because we're going to recognize that there are some things that are of us, and then there are some things that were put on us. This that we're talking about is something that was put on us. And every new generation has a challenge to either continue to perpetuate the bullshit or shift in a way that lets it die. It's up to us, right? You see this gray hair on my face. I see myself as a young elder, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And so it is up to those of us who have something to teach to teach it so that the next generation doesn't end up doing the exact same sort of stuff that we did. That is the role of those of us who are coming into our eldership, is to pass on information that can keep our children out of the same pitfalls that we so oftentimes fell into.
Yes, sir. I love that, man. And even just having this conversation, every time I have these types of conversations, I get a sense of fulfillment, because I know how needed these conversations are. Like, they're not the sexy, glamorous shade room drama bullshit. Like, these are straight, real, raw, needed, necessary, mandatory conversations, man, because there's so many of us that need help. There's so many of us that need healing. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a real thing that we have to, we have to do better at. I got like one or two more questions, because I know we're getting close to the time, but how do you feel like the influence of social media plays a role into what we're talking about with this dynamic with relationships?
Right. So I think social media is a manifestation of that same oppressive system that we were referring to. And so when you look at that, that is also fruit of the poison tree, and everything that comes along with it is going to be reflective of those same forces that are intending to see us laid low. Right. So, it would be different if social media was just this sort of organic thing that creates itself on its own power, and all of the dynamics that we're seeing are naturally occurring. But we know that that's not true, because we have this thing called the algorithm, right? And the algorithm gives people what it is that it has been programmed to think that they want, right? So, it's sort of like the notion of not being able to take your eyes off a train wreck. It's the same dynamic that was at work with reality TV and things of that sort. It's like people want to see the drama. Shoot, if you want to take it back even further, back to the soap operas, right?
Yeah.
I got stories.
All my children, Guiding Light, As the World Turned. My grandma used to watch all them shows.
Exactly. So people often love the drama. They want to see the Jerry Springer. They want to see the Steve Wilkos. They want to see the Maury Povich show and You Are Not the Father, all of that. They want to see that because it feeds something in them that makes them feel better in their own wretched state. Like, oh, well, I'm not that bad, so I'm okay. And I think social media feeds that exact same appetite, that comparison. That comparison, which we talk about comparative analysis, but this comparison destroys analysis, right? And so people engage with that so that they can turn their brains off, their critical brain, and certainly turn off their own accountability, right? And so when it comes to social media, what it does is it feeds the lowest parts of our energy. And it's extremely important that we go out and have real conversations with people, meet with people more often, get on the phone and have a conversation, in which real words are used. Shoot, write more, write your thoughts down, read more books, like do things that are going to engage those areas of the brain that require you to analyze, that require you to think deeply, because social media does none of the above. And it does none of the above because it wants to keep you in this state of, illogical, being illogical. It wants to keep you in this state of just moving with your reptilian complex. You just want to stay in this space of, I'm going to do whatever feels good. This very laissez-faire, hedonistic sort of way of engaging in the world. And that does not allow for healing. The only thing that allows for healing is to get real. And being able to get real requires you to move in a way that social media does not promote.
That is facts. And as you were stating that answer, the only thing I can see in my mind is like zombification. And what I mean by zombification is, in the movies, they had the zombies walking around like this, right? But what I see now, and I know you see, and everybody who's going to watch this see, now this is what reality of real life looks like of zombification. You see people like this driving down the highway. I remember when I was driving trucks, it used to infuriate me because I would see other people in semis. I'm talking about semis now doing this. Like, sometimes you already know where my mind was, but because I got family that be on these roads. So it's like you sitting there like this, driving a daggone semi that could be just as destructive as a missile. You know what I mean? Or you're in the mall, or you're in the grocery store. So I feel like it's zombification. Like, seriously, that's what we're looking at, and a lot of people, have fallen victim to zombification, including myself. Like I had to stop really being on there because I know if I'm on there, I can easily become a zombie. I could easily lose 30, 45 minutes and gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, whereas if I take that same time and put that damn phone in the other room and sit right here and go into that meditative state, now that's a win. Because now that's doing everything you were saying. That's pulled myself away from everything, from the world, all detachment from everything, and going into silence and going into self. And then when I get into self, self then goes into the cosmos. And then once it goes into the cosmos, that's where the regeneration, that's where the elevation, the manifestation, the crystallization, the activization, all that stuff comes into my personal experience at that point, because I was able to leave all this foolishness alone for that same 30, 45 minutes that back in the day I used to put myself, in zombification. And that would be like, and shout out to, like, I got family and friends that inbox me, and sometimes it's days before I can respond. But I do that on purpose, not responding, but I try my best to not be on there often, because I can't afford to waste that time, being in that zombification mode. And I feel like that's a major component as to the mental health, emotional health, and like the psychological viewpoint that a lot of us have on ourselves, because we're in that dumbed down comparative analysis mode, what you were speaking of earlier, about looking at what other people are doing or looking at what other people have versus working on what excuse me, what we need to do or what we want to have. I think that's where there's a huge disconnect in regards to those who are able to, I feel like, move at a high and perform at a high level versus those who are stagnant or performing at, like a complacent or stagnant level.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely, man. What you're speaking to, I think, is really us being assimilated, right?
Mm-hmm.
This entire society has always been built on the subjugation of certain people and the edification of others, right? If we feed into their mores, if we feed into their culture, it is not for our benefit. It is for our further subjugation. And you look at social media, but they're going to take it a step further with this AI business.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not even no longer writing and reading. It's no longer thinking for yourself. Just type in a sentence and the computer does it for you. I mean, can we really think about, and I know we don't have any more time to discuss it, but really think about where this leads. And if you need any clue as to where it leads, look at what the world was before social media and look at the world now. And imagine what this AI is going to do to that same world. It's scary to me.
Yeah. And it reminds me of The Matrix, man. Like in the very beginning of the movie The Matrix, you remember how, like, in the very beginning they showed different elements of what the world was perceived to be, and then what the world actually was to be. Like, that's literally like what we're seeing right now in real time. Because in what you're referring to, they're intentionally leading the world, or attempting to lead the world, into transhumanism, to where they are able to control and suck the life force out of us, suck the souls out of us for the most part, and then transmute it into the technology, so they are able to live and manipulate the reality of the masses. And that's what we're watching in real time. So it's like we got to really, I feel like, be very intentional with having these types of conversations to hopefully spark something in those who have been, I feel like, indoctrinated to being a zombie, like in the process of zombification, like the virtual reality zombification. Is what.
No, it's true, brother. And transhumanism is such an interesting phrase that you use, because humans are so short-sighted that we'll abandon things that we never even became really good at, try to become something else. Because we're always looking for something outside of ourselves to substantiate us, to make us feel like we're worthwhile, like we're doing something, like we're smart, like we're capable. And it's like, no, refine yourself. Before you try to become something else, before you try to externalize your own worth, how about you actually feel worthy in your own skin? How about you do that work before you externalize it and be like, well, I'm better now because I'm this. No, man, just become better as who you are, as what you are. Like, but man, We could talk all day about it.
Oh
But
yeah, but it's real though, you know. And like I said, it's a needed conversation. So I definitely look forward to doing this again. You know, like I said, when our schedules can align, and we make it happen again, because it's a much needed conversation, man. It's much needed, and I do appreciate you taking the time to stop by and join us today to have this conversation and get this series started, man. Because I'm looking forward to doing this a lot more. You know, and prior to coming on the set, I remember telling you like I got some big plans for, you know, bringing both elements to this conversation, so we can. My goal is to, you know, have the information there, so those who need it or those who I feel like it resonates with can come and just tap in, you know, and soak this up all day, every day. You know what I mean? Because this, I feel like, is food for not just thought, but food for soul too. You know what I mean? So it's like soul food. Shout out to Goody Mob. They up there, you know, the AT. Shout out to the Goody Mob, man. Soul food, man. We still standing. So now I appreciate you, Baba. And before we get out of here, man, do you want to plug, you know, how people can connect with you, any products or services you have, the film, you know, where they can find it, or if they want to contribute, or, you know, anything that you want to have, you know, share with the people how they can kind of support or connect with you. You know what I mean?
Sure. All right. So, you know, there's always Karega Ani on Instagram, on Facebook. That's KaregaAni. I'm the only one that there is. And then there's also the Ani collection jewelry, which I make jewelry. What I have on, I actually made, as well as many other things. So please come and support that. If you want something interesting to, you know, pull up your energy and something amazing to wear. We have 9 Pages Media, which is my wife's publishing company and just larger media company that we're doing the film through, as a matter of fact, as well. So you can find that on social media, just as it sounds, 9 Pages Media, the number 9 Pages Media. Find that on Instagram. Beyond that, y'all, I just look forward to being more and more of service as time goes on. You know, and just in this walk that I'm walking, I pray that, you know, my way can be impactful in this world and be the lighthouse that our dear brother was just referring to, for people who are looking for the light and the way out of the darkness. So,
I say, excuse me. Shout out to EI too, man, because she 9 Pages actually produced one of my favorite books to date. That I can't get enough of this book, man. So I'm gonna go ahead and give y'all a. I don't know if they can see it clearly or not, but anyway, I'm gonna put the logo up for that 9 Pages Media right there. But this is one of her products that she, you know, her publishing company produced, man, and
yeah,
very, very, very powerful book for those
yes,
who are in the EFI
yes.
tradition, man. Very powerful piece of work. Love it.
And
Love this one right
she's
here.
published one of my books as well, right? And
So,
another one on its way. So yeah, please watch out for 9 Pages Media.
yes, sir. Yeah, man. So yeah, I appreciate it. Like I said, it was long overdue, and you know, I hated that it didn't line up for us to do it prior to the France trip. But hey, we're here now, and we're gonna continue to do the work, man. And like I told you off air, you know, it is what it is, and I'm gonna do what I can, you know, to put you and EI out there in the work that you're doing, because you know I support it, I believe in it, and it's dope. So you know, y'all keep doing what y'all do, man, and I look forward to, you know, any way we can collaborate or partner, or even just, you know, get back on another pod, man. I'm all for it. So you know, we're gonna make it do what it do for sure.
I should. Look
All
forward
right, ladies and gentlemen. So this has been another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. Shout out to Baba Karega coming through, man, and dropping some brilliant, and I mean absolutely brilliant jewels on us today, man. I knew this was going to be a dope conversation, and so I'm glad we had it. And yeah, you have anything you want to leave with the tribe before we get out of here, Baba?
on the matter of white lives. In his infinite and infallible wisdom, God did not make them white, but somebody did. The specter of Bacon's rebellion sizzles in the air betwixt the crack and opiate epidemics. Its lessons missed in the midst of the myth of differences and the myriad afflictions, statistically splitting the distance between the ghetto and tornado alleyways. Back in the olden days, there was an aspirational saying pertaining to the truth making one free. But in this age of agit propaganda, accuracy vanishes and echo chambers and inconvenient histories get scribbled out of memory. The great American narrative is black and white and red all over the pavement. A patriotic web of deceptions fashioned from fabulous velvet barriers, appearing of champagne wishes and red herrings, a market interest obfuscating what ought to be the obviously comparable scars of black backs and red necks. Clearly, God did not make them white, but somebody did. And ever since then, they've been addicted to the bliss of forgetting, Generation after generation, they willfully spread and been vigorously getting bleached from the annals of history. Willful ignorance rebranded as an identity, swinging from the branches of their bigger trees, feverishly cutting accent and color from their collective senses. The descendants of bedbug and tick-ridden peasants desperately seeking respite from the distress of their epigenetic memory. But these cannon fodder track stars cannot fathom the absolute contempt of the gentry, too busy seeking validation to ever reevaluate the real enemy and to address the existential threat of their protected and exalted mediocrity, too busy caught up in the sociopathy, the nonsensical hegemonic profit-driven logic demolishing the planetary balance. And this zero-sum game calculus has these feeble-minded descendants of the huddling masses playing into the hands of their handlers. This zero-sum game calculus has these Christian nationalist fanatics descending into madness and ransacking capitals. This zero-sum game calculus has these anti-intellectual, manic, depressive, panhandling grandkids of the potato famine masquerading as the master race. A mad gaggle of passe-reach vagrants collapsing after chasing trinkets, dangling just out of range, and they've been the jackasses in this six-sat arrangement ever since back in the day. A vacuous plantation of pack animals saddled with overdrafted aspirations, unable to see the irony in chain slinging to make ends meet. Extended shift penitentiary tending Clems and Cletuses, binging energy drinks and daydreaming between meeting out beatings, praying Jesus will see fit to let them trade in sable skins for gilded fleeces. See, the thing is, God did not make them white, but somebody did. And there they kneel, still attempting to spin this mythical political invention into a legitimate ethnicity, still attempting to evade the wages of their collective and individual offenses, their inbred and inherent timidity tripping their collective amygdalas whenever they see a nigger living and breathing, and there they kneel. Amidst the remnants of their dignity, spilling a Mississippi of grievances to anyone willing to listen up, river dancing for a chance to nibble at the upper crust, obsequiously seeking to be visible for one, still believing their uninhibited fealty will eventually convince their fearless leaders to see them as something other than expendable for once. It's pitiful, but unbeknownst to them, the die is cast, and asinine allegiances, no matter how vehemently pledged, cannot protect them from the cannibalism of their masters. In the end, the evidence of this is clear. The history of Western civilization is brimming with instances in which the desperate cynicism of the citizens has been unapologetically leveraged by the gentry to defend the status quo, and it typically goes a little something like this. The increasingly illiterate and pessimistic populace is given an opposition to fear. Then they're presented an eccentric to revere, a charismatic figure insisting he will give them vindication for the bitterness they feel and be their vigorous defender from the villains getting nearer. Consistently, he tells them everything they want to hear and welcomes them to revel in their hidden barbarism. Then they're given a series of easily remembered revisionist and or reductionist bumper sticker scriptures scripted to anneal them in their resentments and legitimize his cynical rendition of patriotism. Next, they're commended for their arrogance and bigotry, eventually manipulated into forsaking the ills of critical thinking and skepticism. Then they're incessantly given litmus tests to triple check the sincerity of their commitment to the tenets they've been given, convinced that in the end they'll be the biggest winners if they unflinchingly defend the specifics of the supreme leader's agenda. Then they're dispatched as the assassins of dissension and difference, proactively killing any remnants of resistance in their children before they're given permission to die fat, happy, and ignorant. Surprise, surprise. In defending the continued viability of this system, the gentry has a tendency to lie. But insomuch as history has a tendency to rhyme, this empire is dependably defended by the ambitions of sycophants and simpletons. It is defended by the remnants of resentments hidden under rusted tongues and cunning duplicity. It is defended by the double crosses wrought from starvation, famished bones, and gourmet table scraps. It is defended by the grandiose notions grasped in the hopeful callous hands of the deluded underclass. It is defended by the radioactive sound bombs detonated in the pleasure centers of the Second Amendment Apostolic Trailer Park Avenue romanticists. It is defended by the black lung cancer bandwagons of sacrificial assassins. This empire is defended by the foolish opportunists doomed by the illusion of inclusion and the immutable gloominess of the dawn's early light. God did not make them white, but somebody did. And deep in the recesses of their genetics, they remember. They remember the rebellion. They remember battling the real oppressors. They remember, but the fear is the John Brown prophylactic. The fear is the perennial tar baby trap snatching them back into position. The fear is the D.W. Griffith pitch black apparition triggering the visceral reactions of the Grand Dragon actors and the backwater vagabonds, the tramps and the slack-jawed alcoholics, the dim-witted, illiterate hillbillies, the militia minutemen, the sadistic hicks, the imbecile Klan and MAGA rally fanatics, and the easily manipulated masses eagerly defending this madness, even if it's killing them, because evidently the protection of the perpetuation of the whiteness is more vital than life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The abysmal consequence of all of this is getting bigger by the second. And the wicked karma, given all the grift split in the distance between the present and Armageddon, is inevitable, replacing evidence with revisionist narratives, resulting in asphyxiated brain-dead babies that never question the validity of any of it in an infinite and infallible wisdom. God did not make them white, but somebody damn sure did, ostensibly. There was a time when they demanded liberty, but in the end, They settled for permission. They settled for the sensationalism of being considered better than the designated them of the day. And in the wake of the delirium, they became the very desolation they so desperately attempted to escape.
Yep. So there we have it, family. I'm not going to go any further after that. So, yeah, this has been another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Gbemi. Shout out to Baba Karega for dropping this dope spoken word piece and interview, man. I definitely give nothing but thanks and appreciation, for you taking the time to not only share your knowledge and your wisdom, but to share your art as well, man. So with that, Baba, I appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Yes, sir. All right, family. So this has been another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Gbemi. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see y'all in the next episode. We out. Peace.
Ẹni tó gbàgbé ilé sàpò ìyàgbọ́ tẹ́ǹtì ẹni takísà ní tàtàn ò bá padà sílé anítìjàkọ ẹja lọ pé eégún mo sí ẹni gbẹ́rẹ́ ìpàkọ́. Forsake not your ancestors and praise your